There we go.
I'm not going to close this window yet. Okay.
You still need to record,
Oh, thank you. Yes.
but we are
Uh,
streaming, so
all right. We are live streaming. Hold on. We're going to have some echo in just a second. I know. Just a second. Everybody needs to stand by. There it goes. Okay.
oh,
Ah, welcome. Today is the first day, the rest of your life. And I'm Jacqueline with Intuition Power and with my friend Stuart Elliott from CoachStuart.com. Welcome back. You're in
yeah,
Guilin,
and
China.
yeah, and for me, it is the first day of April, but there's no fools around here, so there's going to be no none of the nonsense.
And I'm
So
in Reno, Nevada, and it's raining out. We need the rain. Um, so, how to trust your inner voice and break free from self sabotage. What a juicy topic. Yes.
yeah, and one of the things that so many people do is they second guess. They don't listen to that intuitive voice. I mean, there was a book I read by Connie Francis. She wrote about the Chicago beat cops in '69, and one of the topics there was serious assault on people. And she said that every single person knew beforehand that something bad was going to happen to them, and then they second guessed it, said, no, I'll be all right. There's
What
two of
happened?
us.
What happened that they
They
second
got
guessed?
beaten up, they got robbed, they got attacked, all these types of things. There was one particular story. There were four people who were in Chicago from out of town on a business trip. They'd been at a conference all day. They were walking back to the hotel and decided to take a shortcut down the street. And every single one of them had a premonition that it was not safe. But they said, no, there's four of us. It's okay. Well, they met a gang who were getting ready to have a gang war with another gang, and they decided to use them as target practice. And they attacked them with iron bars, baseball bats, and every
Oh
single
my
one of them was in
God.
hospital. But they all knew, they had this premonition, and they second guessed. They didn't listen to that voice of intuition. And
Right.
it's so true in so many areas. Fortunately, not always as bad as that, but in our life. When I was
Right.
shooting archery and doing the unmarked distances, I was told that the first estimation is always the closest. But most people, it's 30 yards, no, it's 20 yards, no, it's 25, no, it's this, and they'd end
Let
up
me
missing
calculate this.
totally because they didn't listen to that voice.
Right,
And
right.
that's the challenge we have. It's there
Right,
to
right.
tell us, to guide us, but we go intellectually, and we start thinking differently, but listen to it.
Right. Well, that's the essence of the training that I've taught for, oh my gosh, 40 years. I've been teaching this
Mhm.
stuff. And to second guess and to on the positive note, every day um occurrences from what am I going to wear today? What am I going to, which way am I going to get to work if I'm working? What should I do today? What's the best thing? What should I work on first? I teach people how to, if they have a whole list of things to go through, don't
Mhm.
necessarily start with number one or people to call. Don't necessarily start at the top of the list. Just scan the list first and then pick the one that jumps out. Asking the right question is
Mhm.
really key to using your intuition, and training your intuition is like learning to do archery.
Mhm.
There are some basics that will help you. And yeah, do you need the training? No, you can just pick up a bow and kind of point it somewhere and figure it out and make yourself tired in your muscles or whatever as you're doing
And
it.
hurt yourself when the string hits you and
Yeah,
things like
hurt
that.
yourself when this string hits you
Mhm.
with or without an arm guard.
And if
Uh,
you
been there,
if
done
you're a
that.
lady, even a guy, but when that string hits you across the chest,
Oh my God.
that can make your eyes water. So you've got to learn the basics, definitely.
Yeah. So everything in life, but a lot of people over the years, because I've been teaching it for so long, particularly the executives, CEOs, and everyday people, really, to really stop second guessing themselves, and that we have five senses wired in, and then the invisible, the sixth sense. And how do you have accuracy? Can you train yourself to be accurate with your intuition? Absolutely, yes, no question, if you use the right training. And
Mhm.
I happen to have the right training, and because it was pretty extremely powerful when I took it.
Mhm.
But then when I was trained to teach it, the instruction books all disappeared. There were three of them. And my teacher said, just start promoting the class and you'll do it. And da, da, da. So, like 2 weeks before, and find the instruction manual. Judy has it. So and so. No, I don't have it. I gave it to that. No instruction manuals. And it's 2 weeks before the class. And I went to my mentor and I said, I don't know what to do. People are signed up and I don't have the instruction manual. And she said, there's always a reason. Bring me the notes. And I had taken it 3 different times.
Mhm.
And so each one was a little bit different. So she said, bring your notes in and we'll figure it out. And we changed the order of all the different exercises, like 30 different exercises, and three each week, to keep everybody balanced: one physical, one emotional, and one mental. So
Mhm.
you kept in balance every week, and we went deeper and deeper and deeper um, into developing mind, body, spirit to work as a unit that's clear, so that it's like cleaning off the windshield of a car.
Mhm.
If it's been sitting there after a while or years, it's like it needs to be cleaned, and the cleaner it is, that obviously the better you're going to navigate. So the you release distortions, and so the signal that you get is going to be accurate, and then the automatic guidance that you get is tremendous on a daily basis, the synchronicities. But in the process of doing the clearing and doing these exercises of remote viewing, or how to bend metal with your mind, or all the different types of phenomena, uh, what really helps is to work with someone like you, the soul whisperer to some people, that Stuart, if you don't know what Stuart's work is, part of it is just having a conversation. And he is just a master at you are just a master at digging through to, I guess, hold the intention, and then they show up, and then they start spilling
Yeah, I mean,
beans, and
one
you're
of
like
the
able
things,
to like shift it for them, help them
yeah, I mean, one of
quickly.
the things I do is I hear people, but not only verbally. And I've asked many people, what do they listen with? And they look at me as I'm strange, my ears. I said, well, why not you listen with your whole body? And I have had conversations with people on the phone, not even on Zoom or video or anything else like
Uh-huh.
that. I remember one young lady in particular, and I was talking to her, and I just felt her energy shifting. And I said to her, without thinking, I said, you just sat back in your chair and stretched your legs out. And she went deadly quiet. What?
Oh,
She's
no,
looking around. I can
are you?
imagine her looking around for cameras.
Where's the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
did you know that? And I
yeah.
just said, I felt your energy shift. And
Right, right.
that is part of the whole thing. We dismiss it. We've all got that ability to a certain extent, but we're taught to dismiss it from a very young age, unfortunately. And how many times have you met somebody and you say, no, I don't trust this person. There's something about them that just feels off. And what do most people do? They say, well, maybe, and they start intellectually guessing, and then they find out that their intuition was actually what they should have listened to right at the beginning because it was
Absolutely.
telling them the truth. And that is the thing. It's there for a reason. Possibly it was part of the old protective system, but we are taught from a young age not to hear, not to listen, to take no notice. It's just coincidence. It's this, it's that. But listen to it and take note of it. And
I s-
there are a lot of good CEOs who actually listen. They make their decisions through their intuition.
right, right, absolutely. And a lot of the top, we're talking about Elon Musk, the guy that started Apple, um, a lot of
Steve
the
Jobs.
yes, Steve Jobs. Uh, I remember there were a couple talks when Steve Jobs was absolutely talking about intuition, how
Yeah,
powerful it is, how
yeah.
important it is. A top level executive needs to make split decisions,
Mhm,
split second decisions, and they've got to be accurate. And
mhm.
so it is a gift, but it is also a talent that absolutely can be developed. And 10 weeks out of your life, and you have it the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And can you always refine it? Yeah, I didn't know I had it at all before I started taking classes.
Mhm.
And it turns out I had it big time, but had no clue. And and it's interesting because I've taught, uh, I think maybe two times, two different people of all of the maybe thousands of people that I've trained. Is he was one of the top superstars through the course, and we do energy work where you're assigned, like I would be assigned to work with Stuart over the week. We don't talk, but we're given an assignment to do telepathy back and forth. I'm going to send you something, you're
Mhm.
going to send me within categories. And he was so accurate with every single protocol and process. And at the end of the 10 weeks, he came up to me and he goes, I want to thank you very much for the course. Now that I've taken it, I know there's no such thing as ESP. It doesn't exist. And some of the students were listening and they were like, you were the superstar of this course. Are you kidding me? That he was so conf- uh, completely convinced that there's no such thing as intuition or psychic stuff. I should have said, well, what would you attribute to all of your accuracy or knowing things that you can't know at all throughout the course, having it confirmed? Like, I don't think I asked him that question. I think I was partly in shock. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Maybe
then
he would have
thank
said
you for
coincidence.
thank you for taking the course and being present.
Yeah, but
uh,
unfortunately, there are people who are so convinced one way or the other, aren't there? And that is a
yeah.
problem. But the fact is, it is real. Whatever label you put on it, there is a different way of communicating. Animals exhibit it all the time. They know without explaining it. I mean, when I was in the Serengeti in one of the migrations there, we camped in the middle of a massive herd of wildebeest. As far as the eye can see, all with binoculars, there were
Uh,
just millions and millions of animals. But they formed a circle around our camp, about 300 yards in diameter.
how did
And they were
that
just
feel? Was that scary or like
no, it
wonderful
was just
or
beautiful to be there. But what was interesting was they were just eating the grass. They weren't alarmed. They weren't perturbed because they had this circle of distance. Now, if we walked out 2 paces, that side of the circle would move back 2 paces. They wouldn't look up. They wouldn't stop eating. They would just continue with the thing. We walk back in again. They would come forward 2 paces. It was like they were
ah,
connected by a metal rod, and we were just pushing them back and then pulling them back in again.
ah.
They were so aware, so connected to the environment that they knew exactly. And it wasn't 1 pace, it was exact distance that we walked out.
Yeah, there's the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom, all of that. This may be a stretch for a lot of you, but there's awareness of some sort in
Yeah.
each of, even the air, the water. I was up in Lake Tahoe right after it snowed at a friend's house, and he's up against uh wilderness. There's a
Mhm.
creek and like a little river creek, and then we could cross that, and then it's forest. And um we walked along the water, and uh the other friend that was with us just took two hands and scooped the snow, and she took pictures, and each snowflake was the shape of the trees, like
Mhm.
that, like an outline of a Christmas tree kind of thing. And that apparently there have been scientific well, photography research that the water takes on the molecules of the water, not the molecules, but the groups of water when you freeze it, takes
Mhm.
on the shape of whatever is around, like a picture.
Mhm.
So if you have a bunch of people like faces looking at it, it starts to like take on the frozen image of the face.
Mhm.
So that was the first time I saw that. That was pretty amazing. But there's
Yeah, and
consciousness there.
yeah, and you know, people are realizing, and I think scientific experiments have been done now with the memory of water, how it
Right.
remembers things that have happened, and you can see that, you know, with experiments, how it can form itself into different shapes or appearances or whatever. And you
Right.
know,
So
that's just you know, a very, very big inverted commas around just water.
so to
What
get
about the
into
rest of the
to get
planet?
more into the woo woo away from the science of it, if you words have frequency or patterns, if you
Oh
break
yeah.
it down energetically, and if you say like love, love into the water, I'm drinking water, um, it takes that sound frequency of the words love or um,
Mhm.
bliss or joy or healthy tissues, healthy body, and it infuses that. And when you drink it, it can't hurt you. Why not? Or put the words on a piece of paper and glue that to your water bottle.
Mhm.
And the it there have been a lot of research, scientific research, that says the shape of the molecules of the water change when you do that. It's
Yeah.
for the better,
Mhm.
as opposed to swearing and using vulgar language or being angry and like with your water right around you and then drinking it. It's same with food. If
Well, you
somebody
get that
is
from a loving chef, don't you? You know,
if
that's why
somebody's
people say
angry,
grandma's food can never be emulated.
if a chef is having a really bad day and angry, you literally could eat and get indigestion from the
Hmm.
food, even though it's the same recipe as normal. It might be like the chef was off tonight. Like, not, we wish he was off.
But
um,
you know, he wasn't his normal self.
right, right, right. So, talk a minute about the conversations that you've had. Is there one that comes to mind that is a good example of how your work works?
Well, you
Private.
know, the one question that comes to mind I get for back is, how did you know that? And you know, they told me, but they didn't tell me, you know, in so many words, if you like. It's their energy, whatever the body language, everything else is taken in. And that's why people have said, you know, you're talking to my soul. And that's why that moniker, the soul whisperer, came along, because, you know, I hear or see things that they don't see within themselves, and they've just learned over the years to dismiss. And that's part of the problem with the second guessing situation. Or maybe they're only listening to that other part of themselves that's riddled with self-doubt, the imposter that is, I would suggest, is in everybody's mind. And you know, am I good enough? I don't deserve this. I can't. They haven't learned to shut that noise out, and that is what's controlling them. And I can hear beyond that.
Yeah, like what if you could?
Yeah. Well, I
Well,
mean,
but you
that's a
can't.
powerful question, you know, and it stops people in the tracks, you
then
know.
then they come back with, but you don't understand.
Yeah, because they've always got a reason, because that's what's being whispered in their ear, and maybe they picked it up as a child or something like that, that they're not good enough. That, you know, I can't remember who it was now, but it's a true story. A young child, two young children in the family, they were offered sweets, and the one wanted a red one, the other wanted a different color, but they only had two red. And the one who wanted the other color felt put down. They weren't respected. They weren't good enough because they couldn't get the other color. And these little things
Are you
sometimes
talking
play
about
such a,
candy?
yeah, it could be candy,
Oh,
could be
sweets.
anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Sweets. Yeah. Sorry, I'm English.
Yeah, right. I'm not.
So, yeah, no, we just have to watch the language. But again, this is the power of words. We have to be
Right,
very, very careful
right,
sometimes and have to understand who we're talking to, and how they pick up on the interpretation of our message. But we have these little things that just lodge with us, and it makes us feel inferior, and then we practice it and practice and practice it over and over again and perfect this nonsense, and it's not really nonsense because it does affect people's lives. But if we can hear that and see that as an outsider, and then help them to recognize what's happening or to get past that pattern, that's where the power of intuition, the power of understanding, the power of really listening to people comes along,
right. It
because it helps
sometimes
them get outside themselves.
sometimes makes me sad when I think of how easy it is to take a few minutes a day. One exercise that lasts for 5 weeks is takes 1 minute a day to do.
Mhm. And we haven't
And
got that minute, or so we tell ourselves.
well, I mean, people, a lot of people have a difficult concept thinking, how do you mean you can really develop intuition or psychic abilities? I mean, I made
Mhm.
a really good living doing psychic readings professionally, and I ended up working with the Los Angeles Police Department and Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, finding missing children, working on crime cases,
Mhm.
and there were, I think, about 15 of us in USA, United Sensitives Anonymous. Um, and this goes back into the probably the late 1980s, uh, when we were doing that. And we were, like missing children, where if the person is alive or not, if they're not, where they might find the remains and things, and help the parents really come to conclusion, a closure. And I didn't want to work on a lot of the bad criminal cases, so I chose other things because it was like, I don't want to tune into that. But there's enough
Yeah.
people on the team that want to do that. Like, let them do
Mhm.
it. I don't want
Yeah.
to tune into gore and things like that. But I was trained. I had no clue that I could do any of that. There was a woman who was an artist, and they would just give us, sometimes not even the name of the victim, but um, circumstances. This artist would actually go into meditation, and she would draw either the victim or the person that actually did whatever the crime was.
Mhm.
And first of all, she was a phenomenal artist. It was like, oh my God. And then second of all, the few times that the police did show us the results, it was like a photograph of the person.
Mhm.
And um it there it's so rewarding to see over the decades the level of creativity that comes out by taking. There was a woman who, I have one of her paintings in my living room, where after class number 4, she started painting again, and painting in color, because apparently she'd shifted and then it was black and white stuff, and then she stopped doing things for like 6 years.
Mhm.
And in 4 weeks she got back full blown into her art, and she was so talented. I mean, the piece is amazing that she did for me. Um, and yeah, there it's so much fun to see people bloom, and you get the same thing with
Yeah.
your
Well, that is the biggest
work.
joy in the world, really. There's no other way of putting it for me.
Yeah,
When somebody just suddenly connects and gets it, and they just become alive in
yeah,
a way that they've never been before, it's phenomenal.
yeah. This one woman, again, class four, I think it was class four. She was saying, I don't have intuition. I don't like use it, and because I never have it, blah blah blah. Anyway, we were doing it in Los Angeles, and she bounds in the door. I listened to I finally heard my intuition and it saved my life. I said, we're like, what happened? And they have kind of occasional floods, like
Hmm.
a foot or two of water, which is pretty much a flood in the when you're driving through um the city. And this was in San Fernando Valley, right outside of Los Angeles. And she was driving home from work. She had to go around a reservoir, and the straightway would have taken her like 8 minutes, and 10 minutes in the long way, double the amount of time. And
Hmm.
she's at the light, and usually she would go straight, and it was pouring. And she heard her intuition say, turn right now. And she's sitting there thinking, why would I turn right now? That's weird. Turn right now, her inner voice she heard. And she's having this conversation. I got to get home. She had visitors and they had tickets to a theater, and
Hmm.
she didn't have the extra 10 minutes. She needed to go direct. And the light changed, and something made her pay attention. And she, at the last second, made the right turn, wondering, why did I do that? And she got a little bit into the out of the intersection down the road, looked in her rear view mirror. There was a flash flood that she would have driven straight into, and it was carrying cars through the intersection.
Hmm.
So if she, and she said, I finally listened and it saved me. And in that case, yeah, she would have driven right into a wall of floating cars and a wall of water. And
Hmm.
who knows what would have happened. Like, so
But how
that
many
was,
times do we ignore that message? We get that message, and how many times do people just ignore it? They
right,
second guess it. They don't believe. They
right.
think it can't be true. Yeah, no, no. Thank you for telling me, but and they have a problem
Or
because
the
of.
other side, another side of it, there's a lot of different sides of it, but one side is empath, to be able to
Mhm.
feel and sense sometimes physical pain from people. So you're standing in
Mhm.
line at a grocery store, and all of a sudden your shoulder starts to hurt, and you look behind you, and the person standing a foot and a half away has a cast on their arm, and
Yeah.
you didn't have any problem, but all of a sudden, is it sympathy? They call it sympathy pains, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's not obvious. Like all of a sudden you're standing in the store, and you leave, and all of a sudden you have a terrible headache, and you go home and take aspirin, and it's like, oh, I got this terrible headache, and da, da, da. Maybe you picked it up from someone that you're standing next to. So
Mhm.
having that empathetic empath sometimes makes you like a sponge, that
Yeah.
unless you're trained, you don't know that, number one, there's a protection that you put up, and number two, some classes teach you to put up a protection, which is like a wall, and a wall blocks out the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
the thing.
don't,
I mean,
you want to have it open so you receive the good stuff,
yeah.
but you deflect the bad stuff and it doesn't impact you. And so we teach those things in one of the weeks, and it's very easy to do when you have the foundation. I don't like, if it's that easy, why did you tell us? Because you need a little bit of foundation in
Mhm.
order to do it properly. And it would
Yeah,
be,
because so many people will say, "Yeah, I tried that, but it doesn't work."
yeah,
Well,
right.
because
And
they
then I
haven't.
pull them aside and I give them like a 5 minute tutorial, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's so easy to do. Just like someone having a conversation with you, all of a sudden there's
Mhm.
this instant clarity
Yeah.
of perspective and empowerment.
Mhm.
And that's why I love chatting with you.
And
So,
when I did my NLP course, I was lucky enough to do it with John Grinder.
wow, one of the
He
originals,
is an
Frogs
amazing
into
person.
Princes,
Yeah, but
the book, one of them.
he made a point of inoculating us. We went through some exercise from all the negative pains and the negativity that we can, so we can work with people who've got these big problems, but
Wow,
not
that
take
for
them
those that
on board.
for
And
those
that's something that you were talking about just now about shielding ourselves from the harm, but seeing the good that can come through as well.
Oh my God, no wonder why he's so good. John Grinder was one of the original, there were two people, Bandler and Grindler,
Hmm.
two people that actually developed the system of neurolinguistic programming, also known as NLP.
Hmm.
Phenomenal, uh, powerful uh, process.
Hmm.
And no wonder why you're so good. Wow. I'm so
He's
envious.
a very,
That's
very special person. I have never seen a person consider a question that you asked them so deeply and so thoroughly before I met him. He is incredible, and he gets
wow.
to understand you at a level that you can't even believe before he answers the question and make sure it's.
Wow, he finally spills the beans. No wonder why you're, besides your talent, no wonder you're so good at that stuff. That's amazing.
He's a beautiful person. Yeah.
That's that's so if you want to have an experience that is deep and real, Stuart, we keep talking and he goes, I keep saying, start charging for the initial thing meeting because they're going to get so much out of it. And he goes, no, I want to help people. And it's so he has a complimentary real session that he does with people limited on his calendar, but you can go there to coachstewart.com and experience what we're talking about. So do they have to have a specific issue that they want to work on, or can it just be a general
You can
conversation?
have the conversation, and everyone's always got something that they want to get clarity on.
Mm-hmm.
And we will find out in the discussion.
That's awesome. Okay. And if you'd like information on developing your intuition, I've got Intuition Power Master Course. It's part of the information is on the website, but go to the website and intuitionpower.com and get on the contact list, and we will be sending you out details. So, any parting words or?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to what we've discussed, but be aware that there is always that imposter, and it's only trying to derail you. And
Yeah.
how many people I've spoken to say I'm not good enough. They are way beyond good. They're just not listening to that or not seeing that beautiful side of themselves. And the imposter's got that little hole on you.
But sometimes if somebody says, I'm not good enough at this, sometimes it's because you really need to be doing something else instead.
Well, that's the balancing act, isn't it? Because you have to recognize, if someone says, "Oh, I can fly," well, maybe you better second guess because you jump out that window, flying may not come that easy.
Yeah.
But it is easy to confuse it. But most of the
Yeah.
time, we use it as a limitation device rather
Right.
than hearing the truth.
Right. And if in doubt, get some feedback, get
Yeah.
some input. Um, and so I think there's enough to talk about this next week. If you have some questions, please put it in the comments. We'll be happy
And
to.
share.
And yeah, press that share button. You never know who might benefit by listening to this. It just
Mhm.
might spark something like, oh my gosh, that's the answer, or thank you so much. So it takes a village. If you want to go, what is that saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a group,
Mhm.
right?
Something like that. Yeah,
Something like that.
I can't remember the
So
exact wording, but
so
the
press the
meaning
like
is there.
button, press the
Yeah,
share button. Let's create a group, and if you like what you heard, then share it.
yeah.
Thank you very much for joining me today. You have
My
this
pleasure.
week, if you're watching us live, thank you. And this week is a doozy with energy. We've got a new full moon. No, we have what have we got? Oh, today. Um, full moon, couple major religious holidays have starting tonight. Passover for the Jewish people. We've got Good Friday tomorrow or day after tomorrow.
Not tomorrow.
Easter Sunday. A lot of other religions. There's some energy alignments over the next 3 to 5 days that are spectacularly powerful.
Mhm.
So
And over here, we've got what they call Qingmingjie, which is Tomb Sweeping Day, or paying respect to their ancestors. And that's a major, major thing that I think, would go down well around the world. That, we respect the ancestors, the people who are responsible for us.
yes, everything is energy, and
Mhm.
energy travels in waves,
Yeah.
cycles. And so pay attention and make it a good week, everybody,
Well,
and give
have lots
somebody a
of
hug,
fun.
including yourself.
Yeah. And we'll see you next week.
Yes, thank you for joining me, and we'll continue this next week.